Sir, how are you? Oh my God, look at that. Wow, it's going to be tough to beat that uniform. Oh, is that right? No, 9:30. He's a planner. He wanted us here at 8:45.
When I did my internship, the CTO with that long break protocol, we were doing one of these webinars. In the middle, I said, we're doing this fireside chat. Your house is my house. Those cameras were set by fireplace. And we'll dress it like purple sweaters. And we'll just have a conversation about this technology. It worked great. Got a lot of feedback. Absolutely. Chill out. I remember I was briefing like this down at the I went down there and like as I'm briefing, like I started talking, what's going on? You know, and I looked at the slide, my team had stuck in like pop-up ears. They would just show up at random during the briefing. Awesome. I'm like, oh thanks Steve. You're gonna be right kind of awesome. Feel cool. Obviously you are. You didn't kill anybody. Yeah. Sounds like it was on the showroom floor. Oh, yeah. Very loud, though. You could have on when you're on the plane, clear natural. What? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so it's got to have music if you're going to have fun. That sound gets you. Yeah. Good morning. This is a small business section. Just want to make sure everyone's aware. There are a couple of what? Lock the door, Marcus.
They left out your word part of it. Did you see that? Yeah, I mean, oh my! If you had a Sharpie, you would do that, huh? That's the logo of the company that's sponsoring the session.
Oh, that's phase.
Phase 2. That's right. Yeah, it could be a tree. Yep, you can hide it right there, sir. This is going to be the first test. What do you see in that picture? Okay. We're going to have to check with him. What do you see in that picture? Arrow? Arrow? Tree. We'll find out. We'll find out. This is going to be a test. Yeah, I actually think so. What do you, Tom, come here. This is test number 1 of the panel. What do you see in that picture? A flag. Okay. We're trying to figure out what it is. It's the logo of the company that is sponsoring us. I kind of like the idea of an arrow, but we'll have to figure that out. Will you be participating in the Friday summit? Yeah, you are? Yeah. Pretty much everyone we spoke with yesterday will be at the summit. So you're all going to be in the know. Was it you who left a bottle of water in our room? There was someone who left a bottle of water in the room. Yeah, we have to figure out who it is. We're going to have to trace it back. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone for stopping by and sharing your next 90 minutes with us. We promise to make it as enlightful as possible and as dynamic as we can all make it. I'm here today with a distinguished set of panelists. I'd like to introduce them. From the right is Mr. CW5 Jeremy Costner, who is the Senior Technical Advisor and Chief of Market Research in NCEFT. Sir, can you raise your hand so that everyone knows who you are? Second in line, we have Mrs. Tom Dunaway, Product Manager of Global Enterprise Network Modernization, OCONA's POEIS. Off we go. There you go. We have Matt Meyer, PM of I2S in Program Executive Office for C3T. Thank you. Then we have Mr. Ward. Oh, no, I missed that one. We have Carl Young, Senior Solutions Architect for BAE Systems. Woohoo! There you go. And finally, Mr. Ward, who is Assistant PEO of C3T. And thank you all for being here. Second, I would like to thank our sponsor, Phase 2. They've been extremely grateful to them for getting this our community together. Today's forum offers an opportunity for all three of our participants to be in discussions, and that is government, military, and industry. This is our time to engage in a dialogue for what the Unified Network is and how the organizational structure for POEIS, PO3C, C3T, and NCEFT, how they will welcome the industry participation, particularly the small businesses, in making a reality of network, unified network. The Army's adoption of these very new digital technology and frameworks enables them to get where they need to be, which is to meet the soldier at the edge. And so the Unified Network is that weapons platform that is going to enable them to do that. It's not a small journey to get where they want to get. It's not going to be a 1 day or a 1 year or a 1 month endeavor. It's going to be a journey of maturity for them. And our job is to try to help them get there, either in an accelerated way or in a fashion that meets the soldier at their mission needs. How we're going to go about this today is we're going to allow each one of the panelists to speak for about 10 minutes about their organization, the outcomes of their organization, the methods that that organization can actually use to engage with industry and engage with small businesses as significant contributors in the journey. After that, we'll have a period of about 20 minutes of directed questions from me to them. And then you will all have 15 minutes to drill them. And I will make sure that you have ample time to do that. And the intent is to create an opportunity for dialogue. So questions, things that are of need for you, that's the time to engage with them. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jeremy get us started.
Well, thank you and good morning. So the goal this morning is not to talk too fast, but the espresso may not help with that. We'll see what happens. So I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the Network Cross-Functional Team. The network is foundational to the Army modernization by enabling the speed, range, and convergence required to achieve decision dominance and overmatch. As part of Army Futures Command, the Network Cross-Functional Team assesses and experiments with state-of-the-art technologies in order to drive requirements and transitions to accelerate modernization. The team takes into account not just Army needs, but also joint multinational force interoperability objectives. We are the what the future network needs to look like. The PEO is the how to deliver, and C5ISR Center is the art of the possible. In addition, the Network Cross-Functional Team partners with Headquarters Department of the Army G6, the Chief Information Officer, various acquisitions and science and technology experts, and other cross-functional teams who rely on a functional network to carry out their activities in the field to advance the Army network research, concepts, and technologies. In order to achieve these goals, we have signature modernization efforts, also known as lines of effort. They include unified network transport, common operating environment, joint interoperability and coalition accessibility, and command post mobility and survivability. The goal for the unified network transport is the Army is establishing an available, reliable, and resilient unified network that ensures seamless connectivity in any operational environment. The common operating environment goal is converging all the mission command warfighting systems onto a common intuitive framework for current and future capabilities. Joint interoperability and coalition accessibility efforts ensure the Army forces can effectively interact both technically and operationally with joint and coalition partners. And command post mobility and survivability will enable commanders to lead and fight in their formations from anywhere they choose. The way that we achieve these lines of effort is through our capability set framework. So the Army uses capability sets to execute incremental network modernization and its approach across the force while keeping pace with technology, advancement, and emerging threats. In this end-to-end tactical network approach, each capability set builds off the previous and is infused with commercial solutions informed by synchronized soldier touchpoints, experiments, and developmental and operational tests. These capability sets come out every other year. Very sneaky. Starting with capability set 21, which is focused on being expeditionary and intuitive, and gave us the initial instantiation of the Integrated Tactical Network, also known as the ITN. Capability set 23 is focused on capacity, resiliency, and convergence, and it's underway as we speak. Capability set 25, the focus is being automated and protected. And capability set 27 and beyond is focused on becoming multi-domain capable. Every capability set is tailored towards specific design goals that build upon the previous capability set to further mature the operational benefit to the soldier. Design goals have a slew of various characteristics. Of note, they're one level removed from requirements and look more like Army gaps, may not be directly measurable, and are designed to influence requirements and early investment in technology. Some of these goals are only achievable heuristically, but they are aligned to capability sets. So to clarify that, design goals are traceable to Army gaps, requirements are aligned to design goals. Design goals support one or more of the focus areas established by the Network CFT Director, and they are owned by the line of effort leads with oversight from the Network CFT Director and support from the team. So aligned with all this is our effort to achieve the objective state of the future network. So the objective state of the future network will be transport agnostic, data-centric, have a modernized security architecture, and is designed to achieve SEMA dominance through baked-in cybersecurity. In line with transport agnostic, the future network needs to be resilient and ubiquitous to the user, supporting a high throughput, low latency, multi-path transports. Key aligned technologies include GEO, MEO, LEO, SATCOM, providing high frequency and low latency, or high bandwidth and low latency, protected waveforms, advanced data radios, and leveraging commercial cellular networks where permissible. They include predictive network operations and management tools, and the security to support that connectivity. Now, with data centricity, am I echoing now? With data centricity, we need to provide access to the data at the point of need, and that's a major priority for the operational force. Soldiers must be able to access the data at the edge while sharing it with joint service partners and allies. Data must be found, enriched, made available, and secured with common standards. Key aligned technologies include the data fabric, mission command hardware and software, convergence on the common operating environment, tactical cloud efforts, data standards, and artificial intelligence machine learning. Our modernized security architecture is focused on adapting our architecture and encryption to keep pace with future technology, including zero trust and multi-level security approaches. Key aligned technologies include like zero trust principles, shifting from a perimeter-based security to data-centric, using identity, attributes, and role-based access, in which users and devices are continuously authenticated. Also PKI modernization and dynamic access control. And in line with achieving SEMA dominance is providing cyber resiliency across network systems to rapidly identify and defend against vulnerabilities, protect from adversary EW and ISR, deliver network-enabled cyber and EW effects. keyline technologies do include counter EW and ISR effects, EW sensors, a common OCO and RF cyber environment for expedited SEMA planning and execution. And as we go along, we can mention a handful of opportunities for small businesses to engage. Thank you.
Thanks. Tom?
Hey, good morning. Tom Dunaway. I'm the product manager for Global Enterprise Network Modernization OCONUS. It's a lot. Hopefully you all aren't here because you think this is the overflow room for General Barrett. If you are, it's an opportunity you can step out and no love lost. I want to thank AFCEA for putting together a great event, as always, and then for the opportunity to speak on this panel. It's great to be able to sync with the industry. We sometimes get caught up in the day-to-day, and it's nice to kind of come above water and just realize that, hey, we've got to sync with these folks and level set. And so a disclaimer, because I know this could get technical. So the disclaimer I have is last night, a lot of great after parties and events. And so if you got in around 2100, I'm probably not the technical guy you want to talk to. It's either Mr. Bob Carroll or the chief. If you got in around 0200, there's a 50% chance I'm your guy. And if you staggered in here this morning wearing the same clothes, then I am definitely your guy to talk to technically. And so that's the disclaimer I'll leave you with. And so I want to focus on three things: who we are, what we deliver, and then how industry can kind of help get us to where we want to go. So who we are, we're within PEOEIS, buzzword of the day, non-tactical side of the house, enterprise side, strategic side, whatever you want to call it. And so we are aligned to the 06 PMIEN. Raise your hand if you've heard of PMIEN. Everybody know who it is, obviously, our chess folks. So IEN is Integrated Enterprise Networks, okay? And we've gone through some name changes, won't get into all that. But within the 06 PMIEN, there are 4 basket PMs. Myself as the Global Enterprise Network Modernization OCONUS, and then my twin brothers, Koshan Arnold, is the Global Enterprise Network Modernization Americas. And so he does, we both deliver the exact same thing, the exact same technologies. I do it overseas, Europe, Pacific, Southwest Asia, where I have teams located, and Koshan does it in the Americas here. And so the other 2 PMs, you have PM West, Wideband Enterprise Satellite Systems. They do all the SATCOM stuff that you're probably familiar with. And then we have Mr. Wazakowski does the BEX, the LMR, previously LMR, it's transitioning to BEX. They do all the LMR, the computer-aided dispatch, E911. That's kind of where they're headed. And so that's kind of what we do. We deliver, network modernization for Koshan and I. It's the voice, video, data, secure, unsecure at the post-camp stations worldwide. We do that. We're funded through the I3MP funding line. Deliver that, annually. G6 tells us where to go and how to implement that. The other 2, and this all kind of what we do enables kind of the tactical network. We enable readiness. We enable STI, which if you went to the joint PEO, you kind of heard the Stride PEO talk about that. We enable logistics, mission command from afar, JADC2. And so all of what we deliver helps enable that. And that's kind of how it all ties into a unified network. And so how can industry help? Quite frankly, we haven't dealt a lot with small business. And so I welcome you to, as you kind of learn strategically where we're headed and what we're doing, come in and talk to us and help us understand how you can fit into that. Whether that be from an integrator side to, we have CETA contracts that are critical to what we're doing to help us, get after our problem set. We don't know what we don't know. So, it's just more than just Koshan. Come and talk to the West folks, come and talk to the LMR, the BEX folks, and just help us understand, and let's have a conversation. And then let's see where that takes us. And then the last thing I'll leave you with is I did take some video last night, and some are better than others, but it should help drive the cost down if there's certain folks who are coming to see me. So we'll leave it at that. But I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. Matt?
Sure. Good morning. Welcome, small business. I'm Matt Meyer. I'm the project manager for Interoperability, Integration, and Services at PEOC3T. We're kind of a sister project office to IEN and Enterprise Information Systems. So a little bit about I2S. It's an integration PM, so focused on making sure that we're here today, or actually this whole week, to talk about the unified network and the unified network strategy and plan going forward. But our job is to sort of make sure that that's integrated across all the different PMs that support that integrated network. And that's not just within C3T. That includes Enterprise Information Systems technologies, that includes IEWS technologies, that includes PEO Strides technologies. Interestingly, when I was at the PEO panel yesterday, I was excited for two reasons. Because I've worked for all four of those PMs, and B, because I can certainly rank order them. I won't today, because I don't want to get in trouble with any of my previous bosses. But it's very eye-opening that this community is really working together collaboratively to really make sure that we are engaged on the unified network portfolio. So within I2S, we have 5 product managers. Similar to IEN, we have command post integrated infrastructure, kind of building out command posts on the move on vehicle-based platforms. We have the UNO program, so the Unified Network Operations is part of our Tactical Cyber Network Operations team. We have capability sets and the capability set development team. So if you've heard about capability, in fact, I'll talk about capability sets in a second here. But if you heard about them, we're kind of the lead integrator for that, tester and designer. I also have 2 other programs, the Tactical Network Initialization Configuration team. They do data products for units and soldiers overseas, and the Common Hardware Systems contract, so CHS, which is probably the single largest contract in C3T right now. So it's a pretty broad portfolio and a highly competent team. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the strategy that we're talking about here at this conference today. So like I said earlier, the focus is on the unified network, on the data strategy, on the sensor to shooter, and how can we enhance that, and some of the experimentation that we do to get after that. And so the chief mentioned early on that we're in this capability set process. And so, obviously the capability set process is sort of it's a cyclical 2-year kind of event where we can design, integrate, test a number of new commercial off-the-shelf technologies, and then field it to units and get soldier feedback through experimentation and operational and CTC-type rotational events. So for capability set 21, I think the chief mentioned it was sort of infantry-focused, brigade and below, a lot of expeditionary capability, a lot of modern network technology went out from commercial industry. We have so far fielded it to 8 brigade combat teams, 6 expeditionary single battalion enhanced, and 2 multi-domain task force units. So a lot of different units using it in different capacities. For capability set 23, that doesn't actually start fielding until next year in 2023, hence Cape Set 23, right? But it is a mounted focus with the division as the unit of action. And so we're really getting after more of the resilience, the EW, and the pace planning for all the different network components. The first unit to be equipped for that will be the 2nd Cavalry Regiment in Vilseck, Germany. They just helped us through the first phase of a 2-phase operational demo back in June. The second phase happens in January, but basically they're the first testers of that capability in a mounted striker formation. And then Cape Set 25, as the chief talked about, that's where we're going to get after some of the future kind of transport-agnostic, data-centric, zero-trust kind of concerns that the network CFT has put for us, right? So a lot of additional things will go into the command post from an integration standpoint. We'll put out a lot more SATCOM with the family of terminals approach, probably add an aerial tier to the network, get after some auto-pace capabilities, and also get into some new transport mechanisms like 5G and millimeter wave, for example. And then if you've been in the other forums here at the conference, I'm sure you've heard about the CMOS or CMFF framework, where we'd like to have a kind of a standardized mounted configuration for all mounted platforms in the Army. And I'm sure you've also heard about the tactical data fabric and how we'd like to get after cloud architecture and data fabric. And so a lot of that is upcoming. When I said earlier that the capability sets are kind of in 2-year cycles, I guess I was sort of stretching the truth a little bit. They're fielding in 2-year cycles. But the 2 years before that is when the design, the integration, and test occurs. So we go through a series of prototyping in the Cape Set that can help inform the requirements through a number of soldier touch points, experimentation events, test events, things along those lines. And we hold pretty significant reviews once a year, either a preliminary design review or a critical design review for a given CAPESET. And we just did the requirements review for CAPESET 25, for example. And so during that design process, there's a lot of opportunity then for industry to sort of get engaged, right? So as we're building out future technology insertions and capability integration events, I would say there's probably two primary mechanisms. One is during that design phase to get involved with the risk reduction events, the lab-based risk reduction or the field-based risk reduction events that occur usually with our science and technology partners. So the C5 ISR Center is a partner to C3T, right? They conduct a lot of the science and technology events. They hold annual events like NetModX up in Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst. We do an annual event called Project Convergence, which includes multiple cross-functional teams to include network safety. And a lot of industry partners have existing CRADAs, cooperative research agreements with C5 ISR Center to bring technology in and demonstrate it in kind of a lab or field-based environment. And from that, we can get ideas that can help inform what could be in the future CAPESET. The second way is kind of the direct industry engagement that we have through a number of RFIs to industry. So we do ask for information at our technology exchange meetings, which happen twice annually. We have them numbered. So there's a TEM 9, for example, coming up on 7-8 December of this year in Nashville. But we'll talk about all the future technology areas that we're really interested in from industry. And then at TEM 10, there'll be actual topics released where we actually are looking for industries to send in white papers, participate in Shark Tank events, and then deliver technology and capability. And so every year that happens, that's an avenue for you guys to get involved. Look for announcements for the TEM in the Joint Communication Marketplace, because that's where we kind of post a lot of that information. But it's certainly viable for industry partners to get involved early. I have talked to a number of industry partners during this week, and I would say that's almost the common question from all of them: how do I get involved? And I would say that the technology that went into both Capability Set 21 and 23 came from industry partners like you, who got involved in the design process, 2-3 years ago. So, that same thing could be for your company or your technology set. There's a number of technologies ongoing right now. And so I'll pause there and we can go into the next discussion and wait for questions later.
Okay. Carl?
Good morning, everyone. Carl Young. I'm not with the government, and I'm here to talk. So, unlike my distinguished panel colleagues here, I am a newly inserted member of industry. Retiring on last year, at least simply personal with everybody here as this is continuing to be delivered. And in those 27 years, I've had the opportunity to see what happens on the government side of the fence, and now working with PAB systems as a solutions architect, looking at what's happening on the industry side of the fence. And one of the many things that I've run across in the past year is a series of basic assumptions. And I hope we can have a conversation about that today, and sort of share together with ways to continue to improve it and ways to optimize the system it is. So that, again, I just talk about how to engage TED, how to engage things across Convergence. My thought from an industry perspective is those are exactly the avenues you want to be involved in. Giving an invitation to the party and not finding it sort of tricky or not straightforward as it could be. And then the throughput and capacity is a problem. And so we'll talk about some of that. But I have a question for y'all. How many small business representatives are there? I'll make sure we're talking right on it. Okay, excellent. So I'm talking to the happy already. The rest of you, I'm not really representing a large company. I think there are two aspects of this conversation to be honest. One, how do small businesses better, best engage with government? I think that's a very important piece. And then how do small businesses better best engage with larger? I think there are ample opportunities, advantages, disadvantages on both sides. So with working with a large, for example, part of my job as a solutions architect is to build a team that can deliver on whatever answers we are together. And that team through real fast, right? At first, I've learned, depends on the relationship you have. You know, I had no idea how much, like kudzu is here in Georgia, the relationships truly matter between the community across the tapestry of small, medium, to large, and different kinds of all of this stuff. One of my projects, I'm the chief engineer for our bid for National Cycle Range Company. And, you know, we won a position on that. It's great, awesome. That doesn't make any money yet. Two, we have a team that works really hard. That's fantastic. But in the time it took from IDIQ to develop the design submission report to submission to the first try service contract, that had 3 years passed by. Well, that team obviously changed. Right? So flexibility is key, I think, for small, large, and vice versa. Flexibility is pretty key to keeping that relationship going. Building the relationship you have, augmenting the personal interpersonal relationship with the people involved. First, being flexible at time and the requirements matters. That is the marriage depends on communication. Right? So I will say that in confession, they are not the best at communicating with their small partner. That's a challenge. I think one of the things that we can do together, because we're not constrained in the same way that maybe our communication with our government colleagues here, we can do better at talking to each other first and foremost, right? And so now what we're going to talk about, it's about lining up those legitimate, no-kidding capabilities that you're investing in, and we're investing in, and we work together, bringing it, and figuring out those overlapping areas of criticality where we have a decisive advantage for the proposal. So that depends on your small, for example, really legitimately characterizing, hey, this is my capability. This is what I do. I do this really well. And we got to have a lot of conversations. We don't have to let anybody else know. But those honest conversations are going to keep us from collectively selling what my grandfather called wolf it. You know, because that doesn't help anybody. Because let's say the biggest project, let's say the smallest project, and we tell the government we can accomplish X, Y, and Z. Without a doubt, we can split atoms on Tuesday afternoon by 4 o'clock or it's free. Well, we go to delivery, the business fine folks together. These guys have the best writing in the paper. When we go to delivery, it doesn't work. No one wins. No one wins. The government for the past few years, and this is certainly in play. I know when South Carolina worked on civil modernization. I was in uniform at the time. One of the things that we were broadcasting. And I don't think industry agreed with it. We didn't have a way to make it. We, the government, didn't have a way to make it real. Was partnership together. The need to partner is still absolutely critical of us. The methods we're still working on. Is that fair? Yeah, so how best to do that in a way that certainly protects the legitimacy of the acquisition process. It is what it is because it must be. Right? Now, that does give an opportunity for education in the small. Sometimes the big thing helps you with the education process. Understanding the fundamentals of acquisition 101. Right? Understanding the fundamentals of basics. If I'm a small business, I know my little thing, right? I'm building a flux capacitor, and I'm building the best flux capacitor on earth. And if you said to me, Jason, low rate of production, I'm going to look at you with, oh. We collectively can do better at sharing the processes in this coming from engagement cycle with the government. So that gets back to that communication. For small to work with the government, they need the information, they need access to the people so they can have dialogue. Those 3 pieces are very interconnected. So, while we do have a marketplace where broadcasts get put out, we do have AFCEA events where I won't say informally, but I would say unpredictably information gets shared based on the conversations of who you ran into coffee. I think we can do better than that with the knowledge management, getting the information out into the hands of small business parties, whether it's SAM or government, whatever. There's got to be a way to do that better. We on this side have to be really far into that information. Then, if there's an opportunity to increase the dialogue and access with partners without impairing the process. Then I think that's possible. If we want to have a conversation, as a solution architect now, I pretend that I'm a chief, because I work on a real office, I pretend I'm a corporate law officer. I get to drink my own coffee, and I get to avoid the meetings I don't want to go to. And that's what I do. And so I think what I would love most is, let's say she's got a challenge, one of the capability sets that we're working on or whatever. I would love a little better opportunity to go sit in this whiteboard or sit in my whiteboard and let's just start doing the thing. Start drawing the points and those out and say, hey, am I on the right track? And how do you do that while doing two things at once? One, protecting the government from a biased position, and two, protecting my intellectual property that we're developing on the fly. That's the rub. If people can understand that rub, sometimes the barriers make a little more sense if you find ways around it. And I've already that's really well too. To be successful between, certainly between the small and the big, those relationships are critical. That honesty is essential, and holding one another accountable is true. Before I was active, I owned software company all about it. And I told the lawyer, we're trying to work out our first set of contracts. He said, well, this contract is work. What am I paying you for? He says, a contract is nothing more than it sets out a guideline for both parties to expect. When a contract is fulfilled, a good deal is when both parties walk away satisfied with what the transaction. We need to take a similar approach now. I know our lawyers get involved and get lots of stuff, but at the end of the day, literal what we say we do, treat each other so that we can then supply the ability. As we look forward to the unified network, and I was in the requirements kind of laid out this morning, and you look at a chip-up chart that we have a dizzying array of capability sets that we over-integrated, are connected in an effective, logical manner, and the budgets are aligned, et cetera, we hope it makes sense so that we can put together complex solutions to these things. So, I would say, for example, working with BAE, I'm going to need a little slice of what Mike's got, a little slice of what Tim's got, a little slice of what Jim's got, and we'll put it together in a way that makes sense as an integrator. So, we're doing integration from our aspect, maybe integrated to the point so that it works with the organization as a thing. So that's just a degree of complexity of corporation and quality in order to achieve that. Ultimately, I think there are two major friction points. There's the sort of perspective from the government that, hey, I haven't clearly delineated what I think the requirements are. That's a great thing. And then some GS-14 has done our young work and it's good. They can be answers to that. We read it not knowing the full context because a lot of it is allocated documents at the time. And we think, okay, I have answered to that in an effective manner. And then a lot of times we still find there's a divide. So again, that gets back to that meeting for dialogue and finding ways to do that in a productive manner. I think it's good for us both. I look forward to talking to you all about how we can cooperate and gradually support what we already must have. Again, as previous enterprise architects of Army, unified network is absolutely paramount fundamental because you've got to move the data. You've got to get to the information speed. We've got to sorry about that. We've got to get that information right. There's a tremendous amount of thought work and creativity to get there. Look forward to conversation.
That dialogue and honest feedback, we learn a full board by the before we're on the project, before we're on the contract. So getting that feedback from leadership helps us fix the document about final draft, final publication. People going left, you got to read it, people going left. And we are so often so bad at the budget. back to that early on. And if he was camping in Japan, all the time, if he won't respond, if I ask this question, and everybody's going to know I'm going to I understand that now, but as much as you can, often good at that. I guess I'm at the end, so I'm going to try to title this together. Chief opened up with the relationship between the network cross-functional team and the PTO team, and specifically from day one, Mr. Gallagher and General Bassett, Gallagher, Collins, and now Renee and Cox. When you see one, you almost always see the other, and that's how close the relationship is. They decide what kind of drive, and we decide how to drive. And as all the senior leaders are talking about this conference over the last several months, senior leaders speaking together, unified network, unified network, unified network. And if you understand that, you want to put it out there. Unified network is not a thing. Nobody's going to sell me for unified network. So one of the goals I have is to look across the portfolio, internal to the CPC, but the network we're talking about is no longer active, no longer a PTO responsibility. The two, in center two here, is the network. And that touches every PTO response. So even AMO has network responsibility. EIS bringing it from the enterprise side, CPC bringing it from the tactical mission command side, aviation bringing it from the airline defense data movement, whether it's ground combat vehicles trying to do fire combat vehicle control. The network is now everything. It's part of taking the unified network buzzword and turning it into a strategy. What we owe back to people. We need to break down the unified network from a buzzword into concepts, into strategy, into contracts, into RFI. And that's how you guys get involved. So we owe that to you. We at my level and at that level, we have to break down what the two leaders are saying and how to help them do that. What does it really do? Part of that is architecture and standards. So the foundation of delivering unified network is not a product. It's a common understanding of architecture. It's a strong, consistent application standard over the years. Because in the past, we spent a lot of time writing requirements, spent a lot of time working on contracts, spent a lot of time developing, and spent a lot of time creating. That absolutely is not different to the now. However, fundamentally, all of the Army business systems, not the solution, but the processes, are the budget process, the business process, the testing process, the certification process, the RMS process. All of those are against the true DevSecOps model of driving agile application. So we're going to break down those paradigms. We need to help to understand we're not communicating one. Great communication, how you information is the one thing that I have not heard yet is work communication one. So C3G and Network CFP utilize the Joint Communication Marketplace, which is a joint managed authority. We have joint tactical enforcement. That's the same deal. So they don't have like data, I don't have this. We use that as a place to augment what you would see on SAM.gov, augment what you see in the engagement systems. Besides just putting out RFIs, we're also trying to move in the direction where we share architecture, standards, and that kind of information at the crew level, so you guys can see what we're doing. I had a great conversation with the representative from the National Investigation, NDIA, about how we are horrible about communicating that to you guys after the first time. So the unified network is not able to send it, so it has to be open. So I got to give you what I want to write. And then if you don't win that first bid, I've got to keep you informed. So as we go along, you're staying page of where I'm going. I can't have you staying on Main Street and I say, right hand turn and I say, I've got to give you guys those directions so that when you come back to me, with that next engagement conversation, you know where I'm going. You're not guessing. So that's the paradigm we're going to break. Take the unified network down from the seniors down to the level of what it needs to be. So Because in the end, what you guys want to hear is, when is the RFI coming out? What are you asking for in that RFI? And how is my good idea, how is my strategy, how is my company able to deliver that back to you? So as we move forward, guys, don't come at the PMs with, here's my solution for the unified network. Learn about the unified network, learn about where we're at now and where we're trying to go. And then help me understand what your product solves the future. Help me understand who you're competing with, to understand how your product integrates with other products. So the kick-up process is really that first step that the CFD and the PE was sort of kind of break down that traditional 5, 10, 15-year average after that 2 years. It's about as hard as you can get on those steps, how quickly you do it. We not only want to move forward on technology, but we have to understand we still can't get it all up and running at the same time. We always have to have that backward compatibility. Again, to bring the solution to the actual question. Help me, help you come back with a solution that facilitates both moving us forward quickly and understanding how we're going to if we're not in the session with all the local authorities and events, talking about the farm strategy, I would ask residents to go apply. Help us give you some context. When the Army goes after breaking down these financial strategies, first, what are the requirements? And by law, we can't buy something from that reach side until we know what we have. We need those requirements. So that's kind of the starting point. Between the development of the requirement process and the development of the advocacy strategy, in those dialogues between the management and the advocacy, when we get out there, we'll go to the budget, we'll go to the RFI. It is an iterative process. Hopefully, you know, Dan kind of made that clear in our vision. It's not a publish and forget. It's a publish method, publish method, publish method. Help us understand. Because one of the great things you do help us is what is the art of possible. If we feed that back to the advocacy, want to know what's possible, what's the art of possible. Engaging with peers is important. Engaging with the advocacy, so let them know we really talk about the art. And the last thing, if you're engaging across the Army, you're engaging across other services, that's always helpful because if the Air Force is doing something, you're doing it with it, that might help me move forward in the next step. And I want to know that. So, again, those are great tidbits that you can bring back to us to help us understand where you're engaging and how you're doing that. And then the last thing is that I want to do is put something, open system, and API. Everything we're moving forward, we have to be, because we're going to go after it in big bite-sized chunks. We have to be efforts to our forward. That's what I'm here. I need to go in with the mindset of going after finding an open system architecture to plug into. Don't even need to come in yet to open system architecture. Go after my open system. That means the CMOS, inside ISR module of open system standard. It will work on that. It's a great way from the physical platform. I'll tell you, if you think you're putting a capability onto a mountain platform around over the air, you better figure out how to do it. If you're coming in from the software side, I'm not trying to say they all are, but I know there are API standards. When you take on this other board, I can file it within the platform. I will finish with that, and you turn that over to Sam, and hopefully you can
Excellent. This is a great panel.
Can I just amplify one thing that I think all the gentlemen said? So I'm a PM, but I get great on that. I'm a chartered PM. So this is great. Nobody cares if I do this, right? They care about if I deliver cost-cutting performance. So from my perspective, and I know it's hard work getting on a contract. I acknowledge that. It's hard work when we don't necessarily write great requirements. So if you don't know up front, ask, okay? Because once we're on a contract and we're off and running, that's when the really hard work starts, right? And so as I tell integrators during kickoffs, if we do 99 things right, that's great. But one thing that we do wrong, that's what everybody's going to focus on. That's what I'm going to get beat up on. And that's what if we fail to deliver that to a stakeholder, that's what keeps me up at night, right? Because we're keeping a critical capability from warfighters, and it could probably be solved if we would have asked up front, or if we would have communicated better, or if we would have just, cared a little bit more. So not that you don't care, but sometimes, so let's just make sure that if we do win contracts, that's when really the hard work starts, and let's be cognizant of that, and let's help us overcome some of the challenges that I've seen, in this role and in other previous roles. So, thank you.
You did the right thing. I'm going to give a chance to everyone to do a go back. If there's any particular area where you might want to enhance and build on what someone else said that carries more weight into the discussion, please go ahead. Anyone else who wants a second?
So one thing to keep in mind when you look at what these fine organizations, structures like so can do, they are highly resource constrained. There's not a small squad of people ready to answer the phone call when you have a phone. That's part, I think, of the problem with communication is so challenging. You're going to have one or two government representatives fielding responsibility over a wide set of programs. And so there is a huge capital issue obviously about. And then on the other hand, sometimes we do government, the RFI will hit, we weren't watching the bubble very closely, it'll hit, I've got to apply to get an answer. That means we're not doing our homework either. We have resources training on the industry side as well. So a little bit of paying attention to that, planning, focusing on where your niche is with respect to their capabilities, understanding their needs too, and they're trying to manage what the responsibility is for the government and military. That balance will help that relationship grow a lot. And when you do have an opportunity for the dialogue, I think it's much more fruitful very quickly.
Okay. Anyone else? 1 second? No? All right. So we're going to go next to the section of the panel where we have guided questions, and that means I'll ask them questions based on what we heard and based on what I know our panelists do. And then after that, we'll be opening it up for everyone. So please write down your questions so you don't forget. If you're like me, if I don't write it down, it's not going to be asked. So our first question is actually to all of the panelists that want to take a crack at it, and it is, how are network modernization efforts ongoing as we speak and planned aligned with the Army Unified Network Plan? Let's start with Chief Costner.
I'm going to jump in on this one.
Hey!
So I opened with the capability sets and the lines of effort and the focus areas because that's kind of our guiding overall themes. Those are well published. My boss, I generally talks about them every time he's on the podium. So it's being very, very clear of where we're going and what we're interested in. Of note, we do have a unified network summit amongst a lot of stakeholders across the Army about once a quarter. We're having one coming up. It's not open to industry, but again, that's where inside the Army we're trying to align all of our efforts amongst the various PEOs who are involved, DAG6, CIO, and then the operational side of the house, as well as NetCom and ForceCom. So these ongoing efforts are, again, from the acquisition side, trying to align programs and seeing what makes sense to start crossing paths. What technologies from the enterprise side do make sense bringing down throughout the tactical in a more mature fashion, and then what things from the tactical side need to be pushed up. So that it's not one solution on each side of the fence. It could be a series of solutions that work across the board. But again, outside of these quarterly meetings, everybody's doing a lot of work, and our engagements with industry, both large and small, help inform what is possible. And then through a series of programs, whether they're CRADAs or SIBRs, or I'm going to foot stomp on the technical exchange meetings. We do this twice a year. The even ones have money associated with them, and the odd ones are just, here's the things that we're interested in. You guys are smarter than we are, so please come tell us what's possible in there. But those opportunities help feed into the larger strategy. So as we're all trying to get out of our own foxholes and play nicely with each other, we can see what else is possible and include that in the overall strategy.
Anyone else wishes to jump in?
Yeah, I can add to that. So I would say that, as the chief mentioned, there's a lot of areas that we are interested in exploring, right? And in the future network, in the future network strategy, in the integrated architecture, the things that we'd like to get after, right? Part of the challenge, though, with that is a lot of that information is nebulous and has to be informed by what's available in the commercial space and what's available in science and technology, for example. what products are out there today that can maybe fill some portion of some of those needs. I think that's what we're looking for. And part of the challenge is that often the requirements are not written yet, right? I know Aaron Banner showed a big graphic of lots of different possible requirements. Many of those are not yet validated, right? I mean, so they're still in draft. They're still thinking through what do they want in the future. And so a lot of that communication with industry is necessary to make sure that we are getting after technology that's actually feasible and viable from an industry perspective. I would say I agree with the chief. We do very regular, I guess what I'll call prioritization meetings, and kind of like try to get after with the limited resources that we have. Here are the things that appear to be most viable. Like if the technology is ready, we do have some level of resourcing, some level of requirements to fight for it in the Pentagon, things like that. And we do publish those priorities as often as we can with industry, right? At events like TAMS, at events like Planning Briefs to Industry, at industry engagements. And so we're trying to communicate that as best as we can with industry, but I know that, probably from your perspective, you feel like it's not enough, right? And so that's why we sit on panels at events like this AFCEA TechNet and just kind of keep you informed on things. But we do kind of regularly hold discussions on what the future is going to hold within a given CAPE set, and a lot of that is informed by what you tell us you can do.
So from an industry perspective, listening to those priorities as they come out, looking at the white papers, the articles, the leaders of our authors, guide what we do to rely on our internal research and development systems. So however your company does internal research and development, that R&D process is how, in theory, we both take a little bit of guess and try to move with an objective or capability by the time that the budget execution is going to collide. That's nirvana. But obviously, in that circumstance, there is risk. There's risk the priorities of budget shift. There's risk that your capability of the business mark. But that's it. And that's why we do it. That's what we have to do on our contribution to industry to where we think the government is. And it's really, again, as we put out, it's where the government thinks they're going to do. Those things we take.
You good?
So I will say from my perspective as the PM, we are already delivering capability that aligns to the unified network, whether that be voice modernization or SIPR modernization, or whether that be the contract we have upcoming that we want to award to align to those strategies of the G6. We are delivering that today, and we're getting after that. So,
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, can you describe where you are in the development of the Unified Network Operations construct? And I'm going to ask Mr. Meyer to attack that one.
Yeah, what a surprise. Yeah, so I'll talk. I would like to talk a little bit about Unified Network Operations, because one of the early discussion points we had at this conference is it seemed like a lot of the emphasis on this conference was on Unified Network, and people immediately translated that into Unified Network Operations. In fact, if you go around to all the industry partners here, we've engaged many of them in the last 2 days. Almost all of them have some kind of a poster saying, here's how they're going to do Unified Network Operations. And I think that's great. I think that's great that there's lots of interest in that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So on Colonel Banner's requirements chart that's been talked about a lot of times this morning, there were lots of different requirements documents. One of them on that chart says Unified Network Operations. It's an ICD that was signed or validated in 2021. So it's relatively new. However, it's a pretty broad document. It talks about the fact that we need the ability to plan, manage, configure, modify, monitor, initialize all the components of the network, regardless of who built that component. And so it doesn't really get after too many specifics. And so the process for the UNO requirements is they would really like to build out those requirements over time. It's sort of an evolving strategy, and they're going to build them out in what are called requirements definition packages, or RDPs. Right now there are 6 of them that are basically being strategized and developed. There's a lower tactical tier, an upper tactical tier, ICAM, which a lot of the forums have been focused on today, identity and credential access management. There's going to be one on data fabric, there's going to be one on strategic layer, and one on installations. And so in each of those areas, the requirements are still evolving. And so when I talked earlier about like kind of looking for industry feedback, that's the kind of feedback we're looking for, is what can we do in those spaces. So I will tell you, the UNO program right now is a very early acquisition program. We're doing some mid-tier efforts right now, specifically to get after planning and management capabilities in the lower and upper tactical tier. So things that will plan and manage radios, things will plan and manage SATCOM systems, transport systems, those kinds of things. So the UTT and LTT focused right now. But those mid-tier capabilities aren't the superset of what we need, right? I just said there's 6 RDPs coming, right? So now we're looking for what's next. What are the next technologies that we can merge into that kind of that mid-tier baseline? And so the UNO program itself, from an acquisition standpoint, isn't expected to kick off until FY24. And based on the current resources that we've been able to get out of HQDA, it looks like it will focus on kind of some of the early requirements definition packages that have already been drafted, the lower tier, the upper tier, and the ICAM documents. And so we're going to be looking for specific technologies in those spaces starting in FY24. The acquisition approach is undecided, right? We're not in 24 yet. How that happens within PEOs like C3T is we take in our acquisition concept to the Army Acquisition Executive, and they kind of lay out what acquisition pathway they'd like us to go down. Like I said, we're currently using a mid-tier effort, but mid-tiers only last for about 5 years, and then that authority expires. So we have to go get a new authority for UNO starting in 2024. And so the strategy right now is that we want to do kind of a full and open competition. We want to have one or more, maybe multiple vendors building components of UNO, right? We want to have a phased approach. We're going to have to build out the capability over time. We want to have some integration and divestment of current technology or maybe even legacy technology, standalone technology, and tools into a more integrated, overarching tool. I know the question has come about lead system integrators. We're open to the concept of a lead system integrator. So we really are focused on getting after some of those key components that don't exist in the tactical space today, like, for example, Zero Trust or ICAM or the data centricity or the data fabric portions of the tactical architecture. We're looking at what can you guys provide from a middleware or application program interface standpoint. Is there something that we can design that will allow any vendor to come in with a potential technology and participate in the network operations and kind of the data fabric architecture? And so, I know we're going to talk more about this at TEM 9, but I mean, we're looking for, kind of data-centric data models, infrastructure for the data repository, authentication or authoritative access type tools, things that can help kind of substantiate that first increment of UNO. And again, the best way to get involved right now, at least on UNO, is to help respond to the RFIs. I think we're in RFI. We just finished RFI number 3, for example, for the UNO contract, where it's an opportunity for you to ask questions on what's going to be in the scope in the first increment and what's going to be future increments. And so, again, I encourage you to participate in that. We'll certainly provide as much information as we can about UNO as the program progresses. And I'll pause to see if anybody wants to add to that.
Anyone else wishes to augment what Matt said? Well. Carl, I'm here to tell you you're not the only one in the pond. Right, our next question is related to data fabric of all. How does the data fabric implementation relate to UNO, and how are those efforts coming along? Mr. Meyer, you are the winner.
All right, so I'll go ahead and start that one. There's a lot of ongoing data fabric efforts, and it's not just within the tactical space. In the tactical space, the two leading ones right now are Rainmaker and then the introduction or the integration with LTAC, which is a tactical extension of the big data lake of Leap. So as we're working through and getting the goodness out of both of those capabilities, needing to figure out how the underside of it and the overside of it can integrate with the larger other enterprise ones or the other data fabrics that may exist out there. So my interpretation of a data mesh is actually how do we put those data fabrics together. So like there's going to be places where they butt up against each other, but we got to make sure that the data exchanges between those two are as seamless as possible. You know, like I love the term API because not all APIs are created equal. Some of them are like Lego blocks, and some of them take a PhD. And I'm trying to make life as easy as possible for the folks at the edge who have other things going on. I'm not saying they can't handle the work, but I'm saying they have other business going on. So having them stop to try to figure out how to mesh two data sets together isn't going to be feasible. So as we continue with those, you know, whether they come from the enterprise side or the tactical side or the blending of those together to a unified network, you know, and you bring in the Intel side of the house with that as well, figuring out what those common data standards are. And again, like, love the word standard because they have one standard rule them all. That just ends up being another standard on the list. So back to Mr. Meyer and Mr. Roberts, having the open ones and not proprietarily open, but some open standards, and understanding that we still have a lot of work to do to get to those open standards internally. But as we bring these things in, hey, this is what feeds a lot of other systems, so it makes it easier to grow and integrate in the future.
Yeah, and I guess just to add to that, I mean, so I would agree. I would say the data fabric requirements are not completely defined at this point, right? I mean, so even the data fabric RDP that is part of the UNO IS ICD is not written. It's in draft, right? I mean, so there's a lot of discussion on where should we go in the future with data fabric. But I think the intent is there, right? We're doing a shift in the Army from what used to be a sort of network-centric model, meaning a lot of equipment and services connected together seamlessly and integrated, and then not only integrated together in kind of in a transit case-based environment or in a lab, but also integrated together on vehicles, right? We're moving away from that and into almost a new data-centric layer that rides on top of that. So regardless of the transport, data has to be exposed, it has to be observable, it has to be consumed by the right the right applications and services in the network, and then it has to be presented to users so they can do command and control, right? I mean, so I think ultimately we're looking for solutions that do that, right? I don't think there is a very good implementation of any kind of data fabric, except in a couple federal sectors, maybe at the enterprise level in a few places, certainly not in the tactical environment. And then we encounter some additional challenges in a tactical environment, which I think have been talked about by a couple other panels. One is there's not as much computing on the tactical edge, right? We may need some additional compute and store to be able to expose and share data. I think also we're sometimes in denied or intermittent and low bandwidth types of environments where you don't always have connectivity back to maybe a central data store, for example. And so we're really starting to think through what would it take to enable that. One of the first linkages I know from my partner PM over in Mission Command, Matt Paul, they're working on a tactical data node to sort of link at least enterprise data down to the tactical edge, so that we can start to expose some of that data and consume it on applications like the mounted computing environment or the command post computing environment, things like that. But there's plenty of I guess what I'll say opportunity space in the data fabric area because we're still defining the requirements.
Mr. Ward, any thoughts on that?
Ability to move data or access data
if I just add in at the end, like also understanding that there's a large difference between interoperability and integration. So initially it'll be interoperability, make sure that we can play nicely together. But eventually we went to the point where it's integration, and it's all part of like one ecosystem and environment. The challenges that we have with the DDL scenario is some of the best solutions are leave the data where it lives and access it like remotely. I slapped it. But it becomes a challenge when those links go down or those links are intermittent. So figuring what's the warm fuzzy in the middle? Like how much do I need to have locally so I can still operate and get the goodness out of it? And when the shot comes back, it'll resync and do its magic again. But again, back to there's a large difference between interoperability and integration. So helping us with that path, and understanding those challenges up front are helpful.
All right. Lots of goodness in that discussion. I'm pretty sure the audience is going to pick on it. The next question is related to zero trust. We all talk about zero trust. It seems to be the password of the moment. Everyone speaks of it in any context, but it has a different definition everywhere you go. So how do you define zero trust? What does it mean to you in the context of the unified network? And how can small businesses play a role in ensuring data security across the unified network? And I'm going to let anyone take a bite at that one.
I can
Chief
start.
Costner likes that one. Look at him. He's jumping up the chair.
Yeah, so I would say from a PMI2S perspective, maybe POC3T perspective, there's definitely industry definitions of kind of what zero trust or zero trust architecture is. Ultimately, what we'd like to have is a secure, trusted environment where both kind of person entities and non-person entities can securely access the authorized data and resources that they need, based on their mission needs, based on their where they are in the force structure, based on their need to know, things like that. And so we're looking for a security architecture that will sort of overlay that data-centric, transport-agnostic environment, right? So that's kind of where I see the zero trust coming in. It's a portion of a larger security architecture that we need to overlay just to make sure that people can kind of authenticate, be identified, and get access to the capabilities and services in the network. I'll pause there.
I'll go ahead and jump in as well. So just for some background, I'm the industry engagement guy for the network CFT. Had a lot of conversations about zero trust over the last year. I would recommend, should you bring forward a solution or an idea or a part of the fixed action, if you would, I'd say premise it with which pillar that you're going to address. I'm familiar with both the 5-pillar model and the 7-pillar model. I know from the government side, we probably need to do a better job of which one we're actually going to start leaning on, but there are differences in the implementation of those. That being said, to add on to what Mr. Meyer was saying, there are some challenges with figuring out how to implement any number of solutions. The idea of continuously verifying who and what you are and what you have access to becomes a bit of a problem when you have limited resources or limited connectivity. So what can still exist, whether it's maintaining policies until a link comes back up, or it's making sure that we have the convenience store to actually execute whatever magic your piece of it can add to it. But it's kind of a fun conversation that keeps going. But we are trying to get away from the traditional, we have security enclaves. We have NIPRNet and CIPRNet and SBU and MP, so on and so forth. We're trying to get more to the point of where once you're inside the fence, you don't have free access anymore to romp around the enclave. But as we roll out these different solutions, we also need to ensure that they're backwards compatible, because we also have a lot of ongoing efforts that are still very viable, that we still have to interoperate with until we can get to the nirvana of the future where zero trust principles are fully realized. There's a lot of goodness that can come from the enterprise side, because there's larger data centers, more compute and store, much better bandwidth. But again, trying to pull some of those capabilities across the tactical space. When we talk DDL, just to be very clear, I'm not saying the shot's always down. It's not always up. So whether it's environmental or somebody forgot to fill the generator, or, bad guys are doing bad guy things. Like, the shot's not always out. Doesn't mean it's always down. But at the same time, I don't have the same resources out in the field that I do next to a data center. So I'm trying to find that trade space in there and what makes sense. And then the last thing I'll add on there is as challenging as it is making sure that the poor soldier at the end who's got so much other things going on, it needs, pulling the complexity as much as possible. Like, there's still going to be complexity. This is where we put it in the architecture, and it can still be enacted at the end. Because at the end of the day, when it breaks and he or she has to fix it, doesn't matter. Like, hey, if I can call an FSR contractor, that poor person's getting kicked in the face to fix the problem. So I don't need a PhD to make the magic happen.
All right. Anyone else? Nope. And that plug is for a temp in Nashville on 7th. Is it 7th and 8th? In December. That's a perfect segue into the next question. What are the channels of communication that the small businesses need to be paying attention to in order to learn about your needs, the timing of such needs, and how to actively be proactively looking at that information to present to you all? So besides the temps, which we just talked about, what else would you like to mention to the audience? And I'm just going to allow anyone in the panel that wishes to go after that one.
So a couple other more formal ones. You got, like, RICTO has a series of opportunities. There's always SIBRs. Keep your eye out for those. And then AFCEA also has the Office of Small Business Programs through Army Futures Command. And they align with a lot of the other federal programs as well, so it's kind of like a nice nexus to go to. And then I know it's challenging for small businesses, but the other piece that helps us develop how to bring your technology or your capability into the space is a CRADA, a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. Now, we use CRADAs for two different reasons. If it's TRL6, Technology Readiness Level 6 or below, then that CRADA builds time for us to actually further develop how it would fit in the environment. And if you already have a TRL9, like ready to go and buy it right now, it's painted green, then we can use that time within the CRADA to shape it towards a use case. The time on a CRADA also allows us time, if there's not already a requirement, to work with our academics and CDIDs to build that requirement, so at the end of the CRADA, we can offer that to the PMs and POs as an opportunity, so it builds that time. The challenge with that, though, is it's technically a no-cost agreement, but I understand that from a small business not having a lot of resources, whether it's time or money, to invest that time and money without a profit, there's some challenges there. So, but it is an option.
Website, Twitter, Facebook. I think we post on all that. Anything else? Do you have Instagram or TikTok? Okay, so there you go. Twitter, Facebook, POS, EIS website, always is most up to date.
We put our procurement forecast on the website. For this,
and then everything else the gentlemen have mentioned.
Excellent. So we're getting to the point where we got our 15 minutes for the audience. So raise your hand. I'll signal you, and there we go. Yes, back on the back, sir.
So I mentioned this up front. I don't know if you were here at the beginning. We don't know what we don't know because small business, for whatever reason, doesn't engage with us a lot. I don't know about Chess. Do they engage with you quite a bit? So our sister PM is Chess, but from IEN perspective, my 06 level and all the 05s, I don't know that we've dealt a lot with you guys. So come and talk to us and let us know. There might be things that we're just not aware of. And whether that be on a CETA contract or, we can have a conversation about, hey, we're thinking about going this way with our strategic contracts, and we put these big, robust, for me, it's robust and it's theater-based. So I have a Europe contract that kind of does everything we do with voice, video, data. Maybe you guys can tie into that. I just, I don't know if we don't have a conversation. So
the set-aside is determined by the customer and the mix, and they get together on any requirements and opportunities they have, and they identify opportunities that are out there and say, hey, this one right here, maybe this one is a small business set-aside. That's kind of what I'm asking. Have you guys identified any of the opportunities that are out there that would specifically use for small business?
So I don't think you need anything from a specific. If you talk about unified network or specific activities like that, unified network, I don't think we're at that point yet. But definitely that's the process. So the help we get from you guys' input, we know the small business we go after, that helps us shape that conversation. But at this point, I don't think anything from the unified network strategy is at the point of maturity where we're actually ready to make a decision to say, I want a small business to go after this issue. I think the good news is consistently the undocumented demand, even if it's not restricted to a small business for time, always has a subcontractor support those small businesses. I mean, I'm not going to be able to answer your specific on that question, but I mean, from a process point of view, the standard on these process for security, anything relative to the unified technical strategy at that level of maturity. So I think helping us understand exactly the possibilities.
Before, let me do a follow-up on that. So what I heard our panelists say is engage with us and inform us of where you think there's an opportunity for small businesses to have a set-aside. That's true, too. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that we look at is in the acquisition strategy, how much small business target is set. And so obviously, as large, if that target is 28%, then I'm going to deliver 30%. That's what those are.
Yes, ma'am? Excellent. You got brownie points on that one.
So I can take a shot at that and hand it off to other panel members as you guys see fit. But so I would say, so yeah, there's a couple questions in there. So I'll start with maybe the wireless tablets and that kind of stuff. So there is an interest in providing PACE options in the tactical network, right, all the way down to the tactical edge. Our current Command Post Integrated Infrastructure program, for example, has both a NIPR and SIPR wireless capability in it already. For people to log in with laptops and tablets. However, we're looking for additional PACE options, right? So anything that can provide additional computing at the edge, always interested in that. From a work-at-home standpoint, I mean, obviously from a soldier standpoint, they're deployed, they're operating in an operational space. So what we want to do is consolidate or maximize the capabilities that we can provide from that computing at the tactical edge. And I talked a little bit about that earlier, where not only do we want things like network operations capabilities, but some of the mission command and computing, a lot of that kind of thing, we also want to operate in that kind of wireless environment. You know, the other thing too, I talked a little bit about capabilities at 25 earlier. We're really getting after resilience, electronic warfare, automatic PACE options at the tactical edge, and the data fabric. And a lot of that has to do with how much computing we can put and where we can put it, right? And what kind of power that it would run off of. And so certainly a lot of interest in, as Ward mentioned earlier, getting things into like a CMOS form factor so that we're not like burdening soldiers with additional like kit that they have to carry in their rucksacks. So I'll just pause there if you guys want to add to any of that.
So from my perspective, obviously implementing at post-camp stations, wireless is kind of like what's next, right? So we do a lot of routing and switching and fiber, and so I think where we've got to get to is, you know, we're ready to do, you know, wireless on post-camp stations. It's just there's policy and then there's funding, and so those are all challenges. And so, but the writing on the wall is that's where we're headed. It doesn't get after your question on working from home. I mean, I'm sure the Chief's going to talk maybe a little bit about CSFC, and those capabilities are all on the horizon. It's just, you know, just take a little time to get there. Chief?
So 2 points in there. We talked about BYOD, and like you said, like a lot of that leans towards CSFC. So I got to address BYOD first. Could some potential space in more like the camp, post, and station environment. Not as much in the tactical environment, and it's not just from a standardization or compute and store, but it's also from a policy thing. Like, hey, like if I put government stuff on my personal phone at this point now, like there are policy things that we'd have to and that doesn't scale very easily. And the implementation and enforcement of said policy doesn't scale very easily. So it adds complications that sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And when it comes to CSFC, we are a large space in that, both from a CSFC as transec, and then CSFC down to the endpoint, because those are two separate approaches. They can be somewhat connected, but there are two separate approaches. And in the tactical space, there are some use cases for it, but trying to do that at scale, you add in a lot more complexity between certificate authorities on the gray network in between to maintain those and keeping those alive, and the additional complexity sometimes also isn't worth the squeeze. And again, I'm not saying it's a decision. I'm saying it's part of the thought matrix here. KG is really easy. Like I can email you a key and you can plug it in, and all of a sudden I can type on encrypted. Whereas the CSFC, it's a phenomenal capability and enables a lot of other future capabilities. But the support to it right now, again, like technology can scale all day long. Support to the technology doesn't scale as easily. And trying to make the life as easy for the folks at the end. Again, like they have enough going on and it's already complex, and we're trying to like manage where that's at. Like, I love me some CSFC. We've got to figure out how it's supported and where it's supported and where it makes the most sense. So again, when stuff's not quite working right, they have the skill set to fix it and to get it back up, and be able to provide their commander the support to the mission as necessary in a timely fashion without getting kicked in the face too much.
All right, next question. Yes, sir.
Technology is moving fast. How the Army fights is not moving as fast as technology is. Project Convergence becomes an opportunity for the Army to understand how we can change how we fight and how we're fighting is being changed by technology. It is the strategic level learning that are augmented by level minor tactical ones like that and that. All of those are feeding the Army champion learning where the unified network both can and should go. Getting into fight the first is a great opportunity, but it's not going to take time. It is just kind of that capital. Because of the magnitude of the event, because of visibility, there are goals on each of the how often
Yeah, I can add some stuff to that too, Ward. I mean, so I think you said it cleanly that we're interested in kind of technology at any TRL level, really. That's why we have a really close partnership between the Network CFT, who are kind of the requirements generation arm, the PEOs, which are the acquisition arm, and then the C5 ISR Center, which kind of handles the science and technology arm of things. And so we try to vector people towards the right organization, depending on what kind of technology you have. If you're right, if it's a TRL 6+ type of a technology, we can certainly start taking that into operational tests or design and integration events at a PEO. On the other hand, if it's a TRL 5 or 4, probably the right mechanism is through one of those science and technology events that C5 ISR is hosting, like a NetModX or an Edge or something like that. And so, right now, I think our office, at least for POC3T, our office in I2S kind of pays for all of the S&T initiatives that come out of 6.4 RDT&E funding, which is kind of the science and technology base. If it's 6.3 and below type funding, it's paid for already by the C5 ISR Center. And so between the two of us, we're kind of funding a lot of different projects. We have a number of TRL 5, 6, and 7 projects that are ongoing right now that will eventually support capability set 25 and beyond. And so we just got to make sure we vector you towards the right organization. That's all. And as far as Project Convergence, it's an event. It's an experiment. It's to inform what could be in the realm of the possible in future capability sets, right? And so they're looking at sensor-to-shooter threads, they're looking at aerial to range extension, they're looking at things that don't exist in any cape set today, but could exist in the future, right? And so they're helping to shape or inform requirements across CFTs. And so it's not just the network CFT. It involves aviation, it involves long-range precision fires. They're focused on, what could we do Army-wide to sort of better get after some of the networking technology that's needed. And so I think that ultimately will help inform the future or shape the future requirements or future S&Ts that are projects that are needed.
You're good? So we are closing in within 2 minutes. Any last questions? Yes, sir.
So again, as mentioned, the TIMs are kind of our go-to. I did mention the Office's small business programs through AFC, and it's on AFC's website. You can track it down through there. Those are the two biggies. Like we do have some like the small business offices that we deal with at APG that also bring opportunities in. And then once the conversation starts, like if it makes sense to keep within Army Futures Command or the cross-functional team or like other CFTs, if it doesn't make sense to keep it there, then again, it's part of my job as well as like trying to link you up with the appropriate partner, whether it's within C5ISR or POC3T or one of the other PEOs, or if it's already on an APL, like an approved products list or software list, then maybe it makes more sense to go towards like our cyber or Netcom, CENTCOM. So again, try to serve as that conduit for that. But again, between the network CFT and the like AFC headquarters, I kind of like the two go-tos on some like I'm missing something.
One last question. Nope. All right, so first, let me thank you all for sticking around and participating with us. I have three lasting comments. This is a two-way direction. Find a way to communicate. These five gentlemen in here may be conduits. Industry may be a conduit. I'm a large prime contractor. He is too. Make the connections within the forums that you have around here. Those two avenues are fantastic, either over and under. If they decide that at the end of the day, the acquisition strategy is going to have some set-asides for small businesses, you can do an over and under with a large business. Find a way to get to your conduit. I heard the gentleman say, I've been to the Thames, but I haven't been that successful. I've been to the Thames as well. It's hard to get their attention, but I guarantee you, if you're persistent, you can get to this gentleman. So I encourage you all to participate in the forthcoming events. This is a weapon systems. We are elevating the unified network for the Army to that level, and that requires all of our contributions, small, medium, and large size. So please participate in the play stand, okay? Thanks. Yes. Hey, John, how you doing? Thank you. That's correct. That's correct. Thank you. We are on a trailer. I'll be there right immediately after this. If you want to stop by for 5 or 10 minutes, we can go to the tables and sit down. Do you mind? I'll be there until 3. So yeah, I'll be there until 3. So stop by.
I've got noon and I've got 3.
No problem. Let's just find 30 minutes and chat at the table. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I do not have my business card, but I do have my LinkedIn. Can you scan me? Okay. Yeah, so if you can scan me, that would be good. I run out of business cards, believe it or not. That is it. Yeah, of course you can. Get that camera out. Get that camera out. At least take a picture then. All right? I appreciate it. If you want to talk opportunities or anything like that, we are in a trailer outside. There's only 6 trailers, so you'll find us. Come by. I'll be there from about 5-10 minutes from here until about 3. We can just chat right there.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out, not saying that I can help you, but, we're an STDOSB, and, we focus in on, of course, integration